Dwayne, real quick. My suppressed background noise is on auto in the system setting. It's supposed to be there, right? Okay, make sure.
Tell him I need my money right now. Brought me the juice, they stole out my crown. Yeah. Sorry to tell you, I know my value. I'm gonna recoup, yeah. Don't waste my loyalty, my loyalty. I let you in back then because I couldn't see, but now it's clear you ain't ever been true to me. My intuition ain't ever lied, I had to leave. Handle your business, do what you think you need to do to get your revenge. But you won't break me, God as my witness. Past the point of no return, I'm on a mission. Tryna block my blessings, but no need for comparisons. What's from me won't be from me. Yeah, I'ma go through just to grow through. But pay me what you owe me for, I make what you've been saying about me true. True. Tell him I need my money right now. Brought me the juice, they stole out my crown. Yeah. Sorry to tell you, I know my value. I'm gonna recoup, yeah. Don't waste my.
I ran away from heartbreak. Got nothing in return for my pain. I never thought I'd be so empty, so alone and afraid. Wasn't looking for a lover. Nobody understood where I've been. I guess I thought I needed more time to protect my love from potential offense. So I then you came around and you, but I shut it down. So you and I'm not surprised by what I found. 'Cause I know I needed something different and it had to be you. Out the blue, somebody who would listen and it had to be you. Out of all the people to reply my love, couldn't be just anyone. My baby, it had to be you. I didn't seem to notice that you were checking for me. We were just friends, but we started building trust and my fragile heart started to mend. Yeah, I should have paid attention. You would have been the obvious choice, but I needed time to see clearly, dig deep and cut through the noise. So I then you came around and you, but I shut it down. So you and I, not surprised by what I found. 'Cause I know I needed something different and it had to be you. Out the blue, somebody who would listen and it had to be you. Out of all the people to revive my love, couldn't be just anyone. But baby, it had to be you.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody.
Good morning and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth and not care who doesn't like it. It is Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Good morning to everyone in the chat rooms across Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, everywhere you're tuned in. Hit the share, like, and subscribe button. Good morning, DJ Exclusive James Bubba Williams. How you doing this morning, brother?
Brother Ben, I'm doing pretty good, brother. How about yourself?
Man, it's just another day's journey, as Grandma used to say, and I'm glad about it. Right. Just it's Tuesday, inching closer to Friday. I don't know what it is, right, man. It's like we talk about this every day, but no, we're not bringing Monday blues or Tuesday blues to the equation. The news right, that we have to cover is enough. So everything else surrounding it, it's a good day, man. It's a good day. Weird thing is, I'm finally starting to feel a little bit of that vaccine, man. Like I had really? A really great, yeah, and it's not any sickness. It's like the soreness went away, and then that jump came back. So
feel like
my
arm hit the arm with a baseball bat, right?
Man, I feel like a Mack truck just plow, like pow, right into my arm. But all things considered, like other people had side effects where they had fevers and chills. I haven't had anything like that, but I did wake up this morning like, good God, did somebody hit me in my sleep? I had to look at my wife to like did I do something wrong? That said, I'm assuming it's the vaccine and not domestic violence from my wife because I snore too loud or something along those lines. But that said, let's get into the news. She can't either. So anyway, let's get into the news this morning. There's questions about whether or not the restrictions that we had across the country with regard to COVID-19, are they being lifted too soon? On Monday, the Biden administration announced that it would export 20 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna vaccines to countries that are still struggling with the pandemic. This is in addition to the 60 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine America has already pledged, but those doses have yet to go out pending approval from the FDA. Biden, in a statement, said that just as in World War II, America was the arsenal of democracy in the battle against COVID-19. In the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic, our nation is going to be the arsenal of vaccines for the rest of the world. We'll share these vaccines in the service of ending the pandemic everywhere. Now, this is happening with the backdrop of what's going on in India, one of the worst outbreaks anywhere since the beginning of the pandemic. The World Health Organization has classified the coronavirus variant that was first identified in India as a variant of concern on a global level. This variant is thought to be more easily spread than the original versions of the novel coronavirus, and it has been linked to the current surge of cases in India. And now the COVID-19 variant first identified in India has been found in the United States. Here at home, former FDA Commissioner Gottlieb spoke on stores changing their policies and it now being on personal risk. Let's take a look at this clip.
The CDC has updated mask guidance, prompting some companies to review their own policies, including Walmart, Costco, and Trader Joe's, as well as Starbucks, which says they will no longer require masks in stores for fully vaccinated customers. Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's the former FDA commissioner, of course, a CNBC contributor. He serves on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina. His latest op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that the updated guidelines may actually encourage more Americans to get vaccinated.
Remember, this has been an open question, even though we've all assumed that the vaccines dramatically reduce your risk of transmitting the virus or becoming asymptomatically infected. Now CDC has data demonstrating that. And based on that data, they came to a conclusion that there really isn't a lot of value in a fully vaccinated person wearing a mask in any circumstance unless they want to, or they're at high risk because of a pre-existing condition. And that's the decision they made. Now, what people are having misgivings about are the policy accommodations being made as a result of that scientific judgment, which is that many states and businesses are now lifting mask mandates. The bottom line is I don't think these mask mandates could have survived another week or two. Prevalence is collapsing. The positivity rate's 1.9%. So the worst thing you could say is maybe we could have eked out another week or two of these mask ordinances before we really had to lift them in a wholesale fashion because people would have just disobeyed them.
because people would have just disobeyed them. And this is the thing. We have a new variant that has come from the conditions that are happening in India right now. And this is something that the Biden administration, even with the doses that they're considering sending over to just countries that are struggling in general, not specifically India, it's still just a drop in the bucket. And if we don't get control of the virus globally, and you combine that with the ignorance that we have going on here domestically, with people not wanting to continue to wear a mask, and whether or not you are following these quote unquote science, with regard to vaccinated people wearing a mask, it is still a very politicized issue. And we have the people who are the biggest threat to the continuation, or rather, they are the group of people who are making it possible for this pandemic to continue in perpetuity, are the ones who don't want to get vaccinated. And they do not want to wear a mask. And so it's a combination of all these things with a new variant that has come from India because of the tremendous outbreak that is happening there, that really it's very likely we won't get back to normal anytime soon. And it's very likely that many more people will die, not just globally, but here in the United States. It's the combination of ignorance, and it's the combination of the politicization of something as simple as wearing masks that is going to continue to exacerbate the situation as it pertains to COVID-19. There was one more clip that I want us to take a look at in that same conversation, and it's dealing with kids wearing masks and the risk associated with it. Let's take a look at that.
Are people who are unvaccinated going to walk into stores and not wear masks? And at the same time, I'd ask you, for children, I took my kids, we went shopping this weekend. They're wearing masks, but by the way, they're not wearing N95 masks. And so if there's somebody in that shop who should be wearing a mask who isn't, they're not protected. How do you actually change? How should everybody change their behavior or not as a function of this?
Look, I think we're getting to a phase right now, and this was inevitable, where we're going to need to judge our individual risks. Some people are going to choose to go unvaccinated. I think that's imprudent. Some people are going to be vaccinated but still believe that they're at some risk, perhaps because they have a pre-existing medical condition. They might choose to wear a mask in certain higher risk settings like public transport or a crowded store. I think that should be encouraged. I think it should be supported. People are going to have to make individual choices about their risk. If I was in a congregate setting with a lot of mixed people who I didn't know whether they were or were not vaccinated, I probably would keep a mask on my kids. I was in a grocery store just yesterday. Everyone was masked inside the grocery store, including me and including my children. But I probably would keep a mask on my kids a little bit longer, another week or two. I think prevalence is really collapsing around the country. And we're going to be at a point where there's very little infection and the individual risk to a person is low if you're dealing with an otherwise immunocompetent person.
I love the way he said people not getting vaccinated is imprudent. That's a really nice way of saying they're dumb as hell. And then he said that he would keep his kids wearing a mask for another week or two. No, fam, I'm keeping my kids wearing masks. First of all, I'm not taking them into these environments because can kids bounce back from COVID-19? Yeah, they have. Are these variants more contagious and more detrimental to kids? Yeah, they really are. So, for those of us who have kids, and even though I'm fully vaccinated at this point, I'm still going to go above and beyond to make sure that they're not that 0.1% of kids who get sick and potentially could die, whatever the percentage is. I'm just throwing that number out because it is low. But, we're talking about our children, and we're talking about a level of stupidity and selfishness that is at the center of America that is going to get a lot of people killed. Even still, I think we're averaging somewhere around 600 to 800 people who are dying every day from COVID-19. We just don't have it in the news like we used to, right? So every week, by the end of every week, you're talking about near a 9/11 every week. Now we were at a point where about 3,000, I think we had a day where 3,000 people died in a single day. So things have gotten better. But considering that this pandemic is still very, very real, hospitalizations are very, very real, and 600 to 800 people dying from this pandemic every day is very, very real. I just don't understand why. I don't understand why self-preservation is. Here's the thing. And I'm really curious what you think about this, because we we always assume that people are going to do what's smart, at least for themselves. You know, I think we're well past the idea that people are going to do what's in the best interest for their community, because Americans in general, we're just designed, we're taught, we're indoctrinated to be selfish. So I'm not expecting people to do what's in the best interest for their neighbor, even though that is idealistic and that's where we should go. Nope, forget about that. I would think, James, that people would do what's in the best interest for themselves. But we're at the stage of America where, like, these fools aren't even, they would rather make a political statement than to do what's in the best interest for their own personal lives. And some people have literally died because it was a political statement versus doing something simple as, you know, one, staying home if you could, two, wearing masks everywhere that you went. But it's just like we're proving that Americans are so stupid, man, that they would see themselves get killed over something that is as simple as wearing a mask or avoiding going to a club or avoiding going to. I know we're in like year 2 of this pandemic and none of this is new. But once we almost saw the light of day, we got these vaccines and we could really see the light of day. It's the ignorance, man. It's the stupidity that's going to kill us. What do you think, James, about that level of ignorance, man? It's just stupid,
the
bro.
ignorance and stupidity was there before the vaccines even came about. If you really think about it, I mean, here in Atlanta, we had so many people out like nothing was going on. They partying like even before there was a breakthrough with the vaccine. So
Right.
I really think it's a psychological and mental thing, because people got so tired of being in the house and so fed up that they were ready to risk it all. And it's I hate to say it, it's that younger generation that's sitting there that's just like, I'm not used to sitting home, so I got to get out in the streets and I got to go do something. That's that generation, that's that crowd. So they really didn't start seeing those effects until their friends and their family members and the people that you went out with to the club, they started passing away or started getting sick. And I hate to say it like that, but that is what it is. But people use common sense. Just use your good common sense. Do your own research. Wear your damn mask still, because you never know, man. What baseball team? Some baseball team, the whole team. I mean, well, at least 8 players of the team contracted COVID. They still got vaccinated, didn't have any symptoms. So they're good. But here's the concern, though. Those 8 can go around anybody else and still spread it, man. That's what I don't think people still understand that and realize that. Yeah.
That's the thing, man. The thing is, and David, do me a favor and check the after party stream. The thing is that it requires a level of common sense and a level of cooperation for us to have preserved as many lives as possible. Now, we're well past that mark. We're at almost 600,000 people that are confirmed dead of COVID-19, and no telling how many people who are not confirmed, especially when you have states like Florida that did everything they could to suppress the numbers of reported deaths. That said, we're well past the reality that we're not going to look out for each other, right? And we are well past the reality that some people, it is more important to them, like someone said in the chat room, for them, Liu Kang said in the chat room, for them to go and get their craft beer and for them to go and twerk in order. They would rather risk it all for that. But at this juncture, folks, we're talking about crippling everything that we're talking about, staying in this like forever. Right. We're talking about having this be a regular occurrence, that we have people dying every day from COVID-19 because we couldn't get it under control. And this does not change the fact that this economic system needs you to go out and work, needs you to go out and consume, needs you to go out and party, needs you to go and send your kids to school. So what's going to happen? We're going to be living with this pandemic and sending our kids back to school and going to work like everything is normal, and people are still going to be dying every day of this. And so the idea of getting back to normal is almost unattainable because of the stupidity, because of the ignorance, because of the politicization, where we could just have buckled down. We still have the opportunity. This is the thing. Like, I've been saying this for a year and a half. I'm going to keep saying it. We could have buckled down at the beginning of this pandemic and gotten it under control and probably could have saved every bit of 550,000 lives. Now we're on this side of it, and we can still get back to some normalcy, but we just are stuck with so much ignorance around us and so much politicization of this pandemic that it's very likely that we're going to be living with it in perpetuity, which means people are going to be dying from this on an ongoing basis. And if you have an entire group of people who refuse to get vaccinated, well, I don't know. It's something called the Darwin Awards, that they're going to wipe themselves out. So unfortunately, for the rest of us, we're going to have to just try to outlive the stupidity that we're faced with every single day as it pertains to COVID-19. We have to just try to survive it and outlive it. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the ongoing crisis that's happening while Israel continues its campaign against the Palestinian people. The Biden administration continues to walk on eggshells, trying to balance what seems to be their obligatory support for the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu and the public outcry against his war crimes committed against women and children. They're trying to balance their support for Benjamin Netanyahu with the outcry, the rightful outcry for all the women and children that are being killed and the war crimes that are currently being committed. Now, when asked whether Biden still thinks Israel's actions have been proportionate, this is what Press Secretary Jen Psaki had to say about it.
President Biden said last Thursday that Israel had a right to defend itself and that its actions thus far were not a significant overreaction. After the events of the past few days, does the president still believe that Israel's actions have been proportionate?
Well, first, Josh, let me remind people that the president also did 2 calls over the weekend that we did readouts of. And in those calls, he stressed the need for Hamas to cease firing rockets into Israel and affirmed, again, Israel's right to defend itself against terrorist attacks. As I would note from the reports, there have been more than 3,000 rockets that have been shot from Hamas into Israel over the last several days. He also expressed his concern that this current period of conflict has tragically claimed the lives of Israeli and Palestinian civilians, including children, and he raised concerns about the safety of journalists, including those who had to leave the building where the Associated Press was based, and reinforced the need to ensure their protection. So how we are looking at this from our standpoint is that our focus, our goal, every single action we take, every statement we make is with the objective of reducing the violence and bringing an end to the conflict on the ground. There are times in diplomacy where we'll need to keep those conversations quieter, where we won't read out every component of it. But that is our objective, and that is the prism through which every action and every comment is being made.
And therein lies the balancing act. As you listen to them, they are framing this. Jen Psaki, on behalf of the Biden administration, is framing this. Every word that she said, in the order that she said the words, she put Israel first. And she framed it as though there are so many Israeli casualties, or that there's an equivalence between the number of people who are being killed and Israelis being killed versus Palestinians being killed. And that's simply not true. The deaths are occurring on the Palestinian side of the ledger, but this is the balancing act. This is the game that's being played by the Biden administration. She went on to describe what their approach to this situation being, quote, quiet, intensive diplomacy. Let's take a listen in.
Many of those countries that you just listed, our close allies, France, UK, Egypt, Jordan, have done so, are doing so.
That is true, but the role we are playing, the action, the prism we are making all of our decisions through is how can we help bring an end to the violence and bring an end to de-escalate the situation on the ground. And our calculation at this point is that having those conversations behind the scenes, weighing in with our important strategic partnership we have with Israel, also with other countries in the region, is the most constructive approach we can take. So our approach is through quiet, intensive diplomacy, and that's where we feel we can be most effective.
And does the president's assessment from last Thursday still stand that he does not see Israel strikes as a significant overreaction?
Again, I think I noted that the president also had 2 calls over the weekend since Thursday where he conveyed his concerns about the current period of conflict, the lives of Israeli and Palestinian civilians that have been lost, and certainly raised his concern about the safety and security of journalists and others who have been impacted on the ground. So we're not going to give a day-by-day evaluation. I will say that our objective is to, just like it is with other countries and our partners around the world, is to play the role we can play in the most constructive way possible to reduce the violence, to de-escalate the situation on the ground, and a great deal of that is going to be through intensive, quiet diplomacy behind the scenes.
Far be it for us to ask for a day-by-day analysis of what's going on when it's a day-by-day crisis and a massacre that's happening on a daily basis. It's just too much to ask, Jen Psaki. I apologize for somebody asking for a daily update, but I digress. She mentioned the fact that Joe Biden had a phone conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday and reportedly pushed for a ceasefire in the country's ongoing assault on Gaza. Simultaneously and hypocritically, the Biden administration is pushing for a new $735 million weapons deal to Israel. This was announced yesterday on tax day here in the United States, which clearly shows you the direct connection between our tax dollars and the manslaughter and the slaughter of lives that is happening right now through the Benjamin Netanyahu right-wing regime. Now, Congress has the power to push back and block this. But as with everything else, the question is, do they have the political will to do so, or are they bought and paid for by lobbyists who support that right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu? Press Secretary Jen Psaki again took questions about the sale, and this is what she had to say.
The Washington Post reported that the Biden administration earlier this month approved $735 million in weapon sales to Israel. Is the White House considering putting that on hold during the fighting? And is the Israeli response forcing the administration to reconsider future arms sales?
I've seen the report. I would say the State Department would be the entity to confirm, which I don't believe they have, any future sales or weapon sales. We do have an ongoing and abiding strategic security relationship and partnership with Israel, but in terms of the status of that or considerations moving forward, I'd point you to the State Department.
Now, this shows a clear divide in what's happening in the Democratic Party's approach to the ongoing conflict. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders have taken a very distinct route, along with several other members of Congress. There's far more members of Congress right now speaking out on behalf of the Palestinian people than ever before. AOC and Bernie Sanders are just 2 of the leading voices. And this came up in the press conference yesterday with Jen Psaki, asked about that divide and the different approach. And this is what she had to say.
You also have Democrats in the party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, calling Israel an apartheid state. Senator Bernie Sanders is saying that potentially this should lead the U.S. to reevaluate foreign assistance. What's the White House's message to those in the president's party on this?
I will say our message is sometimes you have to step back from politics for a moment. It's not easy to do. And we recognize and agree that watching the lives lost of these Palestinian children, of these families, the fear you see in the eyes of the Israeli people, it is heartbreaking. We want to bring an end to the violence. We want to de-escalate the situation on the ground. The role we feel we can do that through, the most effective way we feel we can do that is through quiet and intensive diplomacy. And that is what our focus is on at this point in time. But we share an objective of de-escalating the circumstances on the ground. We share a view that a 2-state solution is the only way to bring a lasting end to the violence.
And then just on another matter, you have 2 stealth...
There she is again with the quiet and intensive diplomacy. I think at this juncture, we need very loud and vocal condemnation of the war crimes that are currently being committed by the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu. And the final question that I want to play the press secretary's response to is whether or not some Democrats are wrong to think that Joe Biden is giving Israel too much credence. This is what she had to say.
When members of his own party share the belief that he is giving too much credence to Israel in this situation, are they wrong? Can we go into the situation on the ground?
Look, I don't think we it would be constructive to put any labels on it, as you've just outlined. The president's view and the view of senior leaders in the White House is that our role as the White House, as the federal government, as the president of the United States, is to play a constructive role in diplomacy, to use our role, our relationships around the world, to have intensive, quiet discussions with leaders in the region that we have long-standing relationships with. We share an objective of de-escalating the situation on the ground, of bringing an end to the conflict. That's an objective we share with members of Congress who have different points of view and are, of course, we support their ability to have different points of view, but we are approaching it through the prism of how we feel we can come to a most effective outcome.
James, as you can see, the talking point that's been circulated is quiet and intensive diplomacy, because she said it about 6 times in just the clips that we played. But you see that while they share a common concern to bring an end to the violence, they don't share it enough to actually demand a ceasefire or withhold the funding, our taxpayer dollars. I got a real issue with the fact that every month the government takes money out of my account, and those dollars are going to murder women and children. I got a serious problem with that. And the United States of America would absolutely be able to get a ceasefire if they stopped funding this violence. If they can bring Israel to the table and say, hey, sit down somewhere, or else we're taking these funds away from you. And the fact that in the backdrop of all of this, they got the nerve to float a $735 million weapon sale to Israel. Check this out, James. We already give them about $3.8 billion a year. And so that money that they're getting ready to spend to buy our weapons is money that we gave them in the first place. So now they're buying back our weapons with our money, and they're using that to kill people. And we're stuck in this vicious cycle because of the lobbying power of the far right wing groups who support Benjamin Netanyahu. And I keep saying that because it's important for people to have really clear in their mind that Benjamin Netanyahu does not speak on behalf of the Jewish people. He does not. He speaks on behalf of the far right-wing ideologues who are just as happy killing off Palestinians as anything else. That's who he speaks on. That is not the sentiment of the Jewish people, because there are so many Jewish Americans as well as Israeli Jews who are opposed to what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing. But the American government and the right-wing side of this government, which includes the right-wing faction of the Democratic Party, are in league with the right-wing sociopathy of Benjamin Netanyahu as they tweet memes. Like their military forces are literally out there tweeting memes about this assault, about these murders. This is how deranged that faction is, and they do not represent the totality of the Jewish people. In fact, they don't represent the Jewish people at all. They represent the state. They represent the government that has power, and that government is being funded by the United States to the tune of $3.8 billion of military aid every single year, and they got the nerve. Benjamin Netanyahu, yes, he has a nerve, but Joe Biden has the nerve to actually put out there that we're going to sell $735 million worth of weapons, not only on tax day, which is a slap in the face of every American who's opposed to this violence, but also in the middle of a conflict where is Israel, the government, the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu, is killing women and children. And we're supposed to sit back and act as if quiet, intensive diplomacy is actually going to change that. That's not going to change it. What's going to change it is us. What's going to change it is when we actually realize that Palestinian lives matter just as much as American lives. That's the only thing that's going to change it. James, take us to a break. When we come back, we have a lot more to cover. There's a lot of news happening across the country. The GOP, the conservative court, the conservative Supreme Court is getting ready to take up a Roe versus Wade case, which could signal irrevocable changes to a woman's right to choose in this country. More like it or not after this.
Hey, Bill, I'm in the mood for a switch up.
Good morning again, everybody. Welcome again to Like It or Not Show. Make sure that you hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, so you know when Like It or Not is going down, y'all. Make sure that you follow Like It or Not Show on Instagram and Facebook. Like It or Not Show on Instagram and Facebook. Good morning, Mama and Daddy. Good morning, Sensation. Hope y'all having a good one, y'all. Let's Like It or Not. Let's go.
Straight from the mud like Ruby. Straight to the stage, they love me. I understand.
Good morning, everybody in the chat rooms that's streaming from everywhere. Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you streaming from. YouTube, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all so much, man. Hey, while we at it, too, got a few super chats to get read off here.
I ain't come to argue, letting.
Here we go. Jam Tomb 63958 says most kids can bounce back, but the kids that don't, and you can't tell which kids will do well and which won't. Why take the risk on ego and arrogance? I agree with you 100%, man. Jam Tomb, you are absolutely right. Tracy Jones says, good morning, beautiful people. Peace and love. And sent us 200 stars on Facebook. Tracy Jones, good morning to you. Praynay 1976 says, keep up the great work. Well, I appreciate you. We definitely will. Y'all keep on supporting y'all. Scott Fleming. In a country of indoctrinated individualists, communal safety was never really an option during the pandemic. Absolutely right. Android Snack Bar, thank you for your work. Anytime. We appreciate you. And lastly, Jonathan Guerrero, we give Israel $5 billion a year, but we can't get reparations for Black Americans. Let that sink in. More Like It or Not, y'all. Y'all make sure that you stay tuned. Make sure that y'all hit that like button as well, too. And also, if you want to support and become a Patreon member as well, go to patreon.com/likeitordnot, patreon.com/likeitordnot, and you too can join the hottest damn morning show ever. Like it or not, y'all. Patreon.com/likeitordnot. Make sure that y'all do it, and then you'll get access to the Patreon party that's going down this weekend. On Friday. You don't want to miss it, y'all. Y'all make sure you tune in. Let's go.
Came up from the basement, hit the rooftop with a passion. Bad with some good credit and a good sense for the fashion.
Good morning, Miss G. Miss G said, good morning, big sexy chocolate. You better watch out. You better watch out.
Wait a minute, James. Wait, who said that? Where they at?
Wait. I don't know who that is. That's Miss G. Okay, Miss G. All right.
Listen, we're trying to have a family morning show here. What is going on? You got to take that to the DMs. Take that.
Okay, to the DM. Slide in the DM, baby. Let me stop playing.
Hey, man. The funniest thing on the after party yesterday, bro, is at the very end when we were talking about the elderly ladies who be jumping in my DM. I went back and listened to that, bro. I ain't got no sense. I said they be jumping in my DMs, try to do a little something strange for some shekels. So that was.
Bro, you saying shekels?
I hate to be so listen, man. Y'all got to come to the after party. The after party is always live. It is always lit. We talk about politics, but we do it with a level of disrespect it just makes it all worthwhile. Patreon.com/likeitordnot. Also, keep in mind this Friday night we're going to have another patron party, and the last patron party was dope, man. We had about an hour of conversations where we got to hear from our audience. And it wasn't, I should have known this because I've been doing it a while and I've looked at our analytics and I've seen that we have so many people who support this show on the international stage, but having all those people come to the patron party and we got to see them and then they got to ask their questions and we just saw how international our show really is. That thing really blessed me to see that we're worldwide. Act like y'all don't know. But anyway. That said, we got to come back to the United States for a little bit more news and politics because the thing that a lot of people have feared for some time is looking like it's getting ready to happen. The Supreme Court says that it will hear arguments in a case from Mississippi that could directly challenge Roe versus Wade and change the future of abortion rights in America. Now, according to the New York Times, The new case concerns a state law that seeks to ban abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. The court will hear arguments in the case during its next term, which starts in October, and that probably makes the decision not likely to come down until the summer or spring of 2022. But the ramifications of that decision will be felt across the entire country, to be sure. Conservatives have a 6-3 majority on the court, and Donald Trump's handpicked justices, Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett in particular, are now in the position to overturn Roe versus Wade at their very first opportunity. The Supreme Court last heard a major abortion case in 2020 when it struck down a restrictive Louisiana law, but that was before, and that was only decided because the Chief Justice John Roberts actually sided with the liberals on the court, and that was before Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. And so now the balance of the court really suggests that when this case comes around, that could be the end of a woman's right to choose in this country as we know it. And this is in the backdrop of so many different ideological arguments that have been going on over the last couple of years, particularly about Donald Trump's victory in 2016. We knew, those of us who have been paying attention for some time, we knew that there were court seats that were going to come up during his time that were going to have a very negative impact, not only on abortion rights, we saw that coming, but on so many other decisions that are important to liberties and freedoms in this country. And with the bench now being in a conservative majority, it is very clear that they have the potential of outright overturning, or at least severely limiting a woman's right to choose in this country, which puts the Democrats in a very precarious position. Are they going to do what is necessary to protect? See, I want to go off on a little tangent here before we play this first clip. The questions that are on the table for the Democratic Party right now are very simple. Are you going to do what is necessary to protect voting rights in this country? Well, right now, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia is signaling that no, he's not. He's going to not side with Democrats on that and make it necessary for them to get a supermajority of 60 votes in order to protect voting rights in this country. Which you absolutely know we're never going to get even 10 Republicans to side with voting rights in this country, because if they do, that means that it is a threat to their power. Republicans know, and I want to put it in context of this conversation because it is a conversation about the filibuster and the willingness of Democrats to do away with the filibuster to get done what needs to be done. They have not shown the willingness with voting rights, and I don't really expect that they're going to show the willingness with the woman's right to choose. So the real question is what will the Democratic Party actually do for the American people? Are they going to stand up and do what is necessary to protect the rights, these critical rights in this country? And they have not signaled that they're willing to do so. Another option is for them to do what is in their constitutional right to do, which is to pack the courts. The Constitution allows for Congress to determine the size and the terms of Supreme Court justices. And so when this conversation comes around again, which we are definitely heading into right now, don't let anyone fool you. The Congress absolutely has the right to determine how many people sit on that court. And because of the games that were played by Mitch McConnell, denying Barack Obama his pick in Merrick Garland, we have every right to fight dirty and not give a damn what conservatives are going to say about it, because they have one goal. Conservatives have one goal, and that is to dominate America with their ideology, which is not satisfied with simply doing what's in their best interest. Their ideology is controlling your best interest and telling you what to do with your life. And they will stop at nothing, and they will gaslight us. They will lie to you every step of the way. And this is exactly what this next clip is going to demonstrate. It demonstrates a compilation of Susan Collins saying that Brett Kavanaugh will never overturn Roe versus Wade. But now we're getting ready to put that to the test. We're getting ready to put it to a test, and unfortunately, the results of it could be a rollback of a woman's right to choose in this country like we haven't seen in our lifetimes. Let's take a look at this clip of Susan Collins gaslighting America.
I do not believe that Brett Kavanaugh will overturn Roe. Precedents are overturned. He noted that Roe had been reaffirmed 19 years later by Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and that it was precedent on precedent. He said it should be extremely rare that it be overturned, and it should be an example.
So you have obviously full confidence.
I do. We talked about whether he considered Roe to be settled law. He said that he agreed with what Justice Roberts said at his nomination hearing, in which he said that it was settled law. I could not vote for a judge who had demonstrated hostility to Roe v. Wade because it would indicate a lack of respect for precedent. What Judge Kavanaugh told me, and he's the first Supreme Court nominee that I've interviewed out of 6 who has told me this, is that he views precedent not just as a legal doctrine, but as rooted in our Constitution. And he reveres our Constitution. I asked him, is it sufficient if 5 current sitting justices believe that Roe should be overturned? And he said no. I would not support a nominee who demonstrated hostility to Roe v. Wade, because that would mean to me that their judicial philosophy did not include a respect for established decision. Judge Kavanaugh is the first Supreme Court nominee to express the view that precedent is not merely a practice and tradition, but rooted in Article 3 of our Constitution itself. I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
So she expects us to believe that this conservative pick of Donald Trump isn't going to actively protect. And this is just Brett Kavanaugh. We're forgetting Amy Coney Barrett, who was just appointed in the aftermath of the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There's a big difference in this country between the two parties, and no matter how much we absolutely loathe the things that the Democratic Party isn't doing for America. Let's be clear. They aren't giving us Medicare for all. There's a long list of things. They aren't canceling student debt. And while there's a long list of problems I got with the Democratic Party, one of them that I don't have is what the conservative movement is trying to do in this country. They want to dictate to you how you live your life. They literally define freedom as their ability to control your freedoms. This is not hyperbole. This is a fact. They want America to be a religious theocracy. They want Christian evangelical values to dominate our political system, so that if you're not living according to their interpretation, their specific interpretation of the Bible, then you can be charged with a crime. Right? This is their dream. This is what they write about. They have books about this. This is what they have conferences over. Their number one gripe with America is that you are too free. And this is what is sitting on the bench right now. These are the type of voices that are going to hear and decide what is going to happen with Roe versus Wade. These are the type of people who are going to decide what's going to happen with voting rights in this country. These are the people who will manipulate and gaslight and outright lie to you and tell you that they have no intention of overturning Roe versus Wade, Susan Collins. And then as soon as he gets in there, when this decision comes to him, this is how he's going to vote. Because they have one agenda. And they want America to be made in their image. And anyone who doesn't conform to it, well, they feel like you are an affront to their freedom. You being free to live your life the way you want to live it is anathema to them. And James, that's the big thing for me here. The biggest thing for me here right now is the fact that we are dealing with two different types of people in general. Those people who are happy just living their life as they want to live their life. And then the other side of the equation, you got those people who are not going to be satisfied until they can control your life. Their happiness is defined by how they can control you. And this is what is in power right now. And that is extremely, extremely dangerous, not only for a woman's right to choose, but for our right to vote, for LGBTQ rights, for marriage equality, for any number of things. If they don't approve of how we live, then they're willing to make laws in order to stop us from living like that. And that's a serious problem, man.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I definitely agree. And y'all got to forgive me because somebody in the chat said, excuse me, she reminded her of Mrs. Garrett from Facts of Life. So you said come back to the 2 shot. I was just like, God damn it, don't come back yet. Don't come back yet. I had to turn my face. So Chuck Diesel, it's your fault.
The chat room, listen. Our chat room's so damn disrespectful. Here I am giving this emotional plea on behalf of the rights of people, and they talk about her sounding like Mrs. Garrett. The facts I hate y'all. All right, let's keep moving. Arkansas Governor Hutchinson is critical of the House GOP for removing Liz Cheney. We covered that pretty extensively last week. And he says that it's not good that it looks like the Trump is calling the shots. Trump shouldn't be the party's de facto, quote unquote, guardian or leader. There are a lot of different voices, and the fights are getting a lot messier. The civil war in the GOP is on full display. I want to take a listen at this first clip from Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Liz Cheney was removed from Republican Party leadership by an overwhelming vote in the House last week. And you were a vocal defender of hers, saying that she shouldn't be ousted for a quote-unquote vote of conscience. Now, Kevin McCarthy insists the GOP is a quote-unquote big tent party that embraces free thought and debate. But when you see what just happened to Cheney, what does that say to you about who has a place in the Republican Party as it exists today? And do you question your own place there now?
No, I don't question my place in the Republican Party. I've been fighting for the Republican Party for over 40 years, which dates me a little bit. But we were very much of a minority in Arkansas when I became engaged, and we're now the majority party. I want to get back to our principles. I know that we have the country at stake, and we want to have a message that resonates with the average voter as to the direction that we go. In terms of Liz Cheney, I know what they did not want to have somebody that was outside the tent always talking about the election of January 6th, but the fact is everyone in America sees this as a punitive measure for someone speaking their conscience, and that's not good. Secondly, it looks like the former president is directing who can serve in leadership, and that's not good. We have many voices in the Republican Party. I contrast it or compare it to The View. You have multiple voices representing The View. There's multiple voices that represent the Republican Party today, and we should not de facto make the former president as the guardian of our party or the leader of our party. There's many different voices out there. I want to be one, but Liz Cheney is certainly one.
Now, another big divide in the Republican Party is whether or not they believe that Joe Biden is the legitimate president, or do they believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, the big lie. And this is ongoing. Just yesterday, Lindsey Graham finally came out, I believe it's like 7 months later, finally said that he believes the election results. But that's not the case, and that's not consistent across the Republican Party. Hutchinson says that he can't come together around personality in this next clip. And he believes that Biden won the election, but he had to couch that. He couldn't just say it unequivocally. He had to couch it by saying that the Arkansas voters support Donald Trump. Take a listen in.
And so we need to be united in the next election. We need to win in 2022. And to do that, we've got to come together, and we have to come together around principles and not simply a personality.
So that's just one thing, Governor. 70% of Republicans believe the lie that Joe Biden did not win the election. So how can you say that it's still the Republican Party? You believe it, don't you? Do you believe that Biden won the election?
Oh, absolutely. Biden won the election. Trump lost the election. And in terms of, yes, in Arkansas, you have the majority of Arkansans that are still supportive of President Trump. They like what he did in office, and regretfully, many of them have believed what has been said, that the election was stolen. The election was not stolen. It is governed state by state, and we followed those rules. I believe in the state governance of elections. And so what's the role of Republican leaders? It's just like Liz Cheney. Let's educate, let's speak the truth. I want to speak the truth, and over time, I think history is going to say that this message is important and that people will understand what actually happened.
Now, what Hutchinson is trying to do here is he's trying to get it both ways. But I don't believe that the Republicans, the 70% of Republicans who believe that this election was stolen from Donald Trump, I don't believe that they're going to let him get it both ways. He's trying to both sound reasonable and as well as coddle that 70% of Republicans that don't believe this election was valid. And that's going to backfire not only on him, but it's going to continue to backfire on the United States of America. Here's another divide that's happening in the Republican Party. And it's whether or not January 6th was something that people should be held accountable for. Was it even an insurrection? Was it even violence? Was it even Donald Trump supporters? They are trying to rewrite history as it pertains to what happened on January 6th, even though we got it all in 4K. We got all the images, we got all the graphics, we got all the video. We see exactly who was there, but that does not stop the number of Republicans who are trying to rewrite history. GOP Representative Fred Upton from Michigan says that his colleagues rewriting history are quote unquote bogus and that January 6th was chilling. Let's take a look at it.
Our next guest was at the Capitol during the attacks of January 6th and voted to impeach President Trump over it. Joining me now is Republican Congressman Fred Upton of Michigan. Speaking of the truth, some of your Republican colleagues are trying to rewrite history about the January 6th insurrection. What's your response to those statements from your Republican colleagues?
It's absolutely bogus. You know, I was there. I watched a number of the folks walk down to the White House and then back. I've got a balcony on my office. So I saw them go down. I heard the noise. And the flashbangs, smelled some of the gas as it moved my way. Talked to a number of the SWAT team members after it was over. Obviously talked to some of my colleagues who were in the chamber. And I spent some time with Officer Fanone, the Metropolitan Police officer, whose body cam was, you all aired it earlier this week, but it's been widely now available. I saw firsthand what that was. And it did not change my opinion from what I personally saw. One of my colleagues who said some of those things was actually in the chamber, hearing the noise, heard the shots.
So what are they doing here?
I don't know. I don't know what their motivation is, but I know that as I talked to some colleagues, even again this week, who were in the chamber, and they knew that by stopping some of those folks from getting inside to the House chamber, it's probably saved their lives.
Now, as reasonable as he sounds, you have to remember that Upton is still a part and parcel of the Republican Party and voted with Donald Trump. And I want to make sure that we always remind people that no matter how they oppose Donald Trump now, they are complicit with Donald Trump, and they have been for a very long time. Liz Cheney, Hutchinson, and Upton, none of them are heroes. Period. All they're trying to do is they're trying to salvage the Republican Party from the derangement that is Donald Trump. And that's a good thing, but they're not good people. Upton says that he supports the commission and he wants to get to the truth so that it never happens. Speaking specifically of the January 6th commission. Let's take a look at that clip.
So your colleagues working to form a January 6th commission said they struck a bipartisan deal. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy says he's still looking into it. Do you support the proposal? And would you like to see McCarthy support it?
Absolutely, I support it. This is an equal commission. They have subpoena power. Both sides have to agree to it. You have to have a majority vote. Has to be done before the end of the year.
Yep.
It's not going to be current sitting members of Congress. So I think it's going to be fair. It should get a good number of votes. And yes, I do hope Kevin McCarthy supports it. It's important to get to the truth and find out just how widespread this thing was and what can we do to make sure that it never can happen again.
And earlier I mentioned how Lindsey Graham has finally come out months after the election, finally came out and said that he accepts the results of the election and favors election reform. But you have to listen to the language. Election reform in this case means voter suppression, particularly for black people, because they're so upset that we voted their white supremacist in chief out. But here's Lindsey Graham saying that he finally, after months, finally supports the election results.
I accept the results of the election. I don't know what the audit is all about in Arizona. I don't know the details, but I am ready to move on. I think what we need to do is reform election systems. A lot of people voted by mail in numbers never known before. Georgia had a dramatic increase of mail-in voting. So I think it's smart to reform our laws to make sure that you are who you are. I think everybody who goes to vote should be able to have an ID. Have to have an ID to get on a plane. So I'm for election reform, but 2020 is over for me. I'm ready to march on and hopefully take back the House and the Senate in 2022.
James, why does your boy Lindsey Graham always sound like he's either crying or drunk or both? I support. And I told you, I hadn't even watched that clip, but I knew it. I knew that when he said voter reform, that he was going to specifically be talking about the mail-in ballots that black people use in Georgia to give Joe Biden the victory. They coming after our votes. Like, you see that quote all the time on social media where people say if voting didn't matter, then why are they working so hard to stop us from voting? And it's the damn truth. Like, a lot of people act like voting isn't important and that the woke thing to do or the radical thing to do is to abstain and not vote. But you're playing right into the hands of these white supremacists who want nothing more than to be able to dominate this political system without any of your input. And so even the very best of the Republican Party, when they're saying Donald Trump shouldn't have power, they still support voter suppression laws. When they say, January 6th, it actually was an insurrection, they still support voter suppression laws. Oh, and by the way, all of these clowns are going to support a Supreme Court decision that that rolls back a woman's right to choose. So even at their very best, the Republican Party is full of nothing but monsters who want to infringe on our rights to live our life the way that we see fit. And they also want to make sure that we don't have any input into this national. They don't want us to have the vote, man. Because the vote, like as bad as this country is, as many problems as this country has, as complicit as we are on the international stage, not just complicit, we are the perpetrators of terror across the globe. The American empire is barbaristic. I'm just making that one up, right? We are malevolent actors on the international stage. The way that we could change that is by actually seizing power in this country. And this is exactly what these Republicans, conservatives fear most. The best example I can give here before we close out the public show and go to the after party is this neo-Nazi that I've referenced on the show only a handful of times by the name of Nick Fuentes, who was a very popular YouTuber in the conservative movement. I mean, he drives serious clicks and makes a lot of money with his neo-Nazi propaganda. He was there on January 6th, and he was there on behalf of Donald Trump, right? And as a result of the January 6th attack, he is now on a no-fly list. Because I guess if you attack the American empire, you're going to get in trouble. He's turned away from his pro-American language. And it's not just him. You can see this with Tucker Carlson. You can see this with a lot of these media figures who are pushing the conservative agenda. They have shifted away from their pro-America language to attacking America and being willing to tear down the American empire because it stands a chance of falling into the hands of people other than white supremacists. That's the kicker. They love America. They don't care about American empire. They support American empire so long as they are the beneficiaries and so long as they are the ones who are controlling it. And that's why it's so important to them to suppress the vote, because they cannot imagine a day when the American empire is no longer under the control of white supremacy, because they know once they're right. They should be afraid, because if you let people of good faith and good conscience get control of this empire, then we are not going to spread white supremacy across the globe. We're not going to spread terror across the globe. And that's what they fear more than anything else. They fear an American empire that is not controlled by white supremacy. And that's why people like Lindsey Graham, very directly, the Republican Party, the conservative movement, they have every incentive to suppress our vote at every single stop, because they cannot imagine a day when the American empire is no longer controlled by white Christian men. All right, folks. That is, well, James, we got a couple of, and Rebecca's getting ready to join us for the after party. We got a couple more super chats. So, James, if you don't mind reading all the rest of the super chats that we have, and then everyone else, come join us in the after party. Rebecca's going to be there. She's actually in the waiting room. She can't even get in the club right now. We'll let her in the club after, in the after party. Go to patreon.com/like it or not. If you are a Twitch subscriber, you also have access to it. If you're a Benjamin Dixon Show patron, you have access to it. Go click on the link, join us in the after party. Make sure you subscribe to the Like It or Not YouTube channel, because starting June 1st, we will be streaming on the Like It or Not YouTube channel. That's all I got. James, it's your world, brother. Do your thing.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all again so much for tuning in this morning to the Like It or Not show. The after party is coming up next. But first, going to read these last few super chats, and we're going to introduce yesterday's new patron. So let's get into it. Here we go. Twitch highlighted comment, Comrade Taco. The Fox recognized that the hen house is a safe place for chickens, and I believe that he will respect that safe space. All right. Big Rush. We know both parties hate the people. Hopefully more people start using their non-vote more often. Continuing to vote for both enemies aren't getting us anywhere. What happened to taking the fight to biting hairs? SMH. #lies. Thank you for that, Big Rush. Let's see. Abdullah Al-Khawdi sent us 50 stars on Facebook. And Jacker's Voice. YouTube is keeping me from watching today's broadcast. I see you Googling Susan Wojcicki. Keep pushing the truth. Keep pushing the truth, y'all, even when they pull this kind of cheap trick. Amen to that. All right, y'all, we're going to get into the new patrons next. New patrons. We have MK Talbot, Joanne R., who increased their pledge. Joanne, thank you so much. We have Stacy A., David W. New Twitch subscribers, we have Renegade 37918, who subscribed with Prime, and we have Praynay 1976, who subscribed for 6 months with Prime. Come on, run us up those Bezos dollars. You know what I'm talking about. Thank y'all so much again for making sure y'all tuning in today on Like It or Not Show. Make sure that you want to join that. If you want to join the Patreon, you can. Patreon.com/like it or not. Patreon.com/like it or not, y'all. Come on, man. So you want to keep this show going and keep us looking fly like we always do? Go ahead and support y'all. Like it or not. Here we go. All right, y'all.